Hi everyone. Sorry I can't be there today to go through this with you in person, but I had to stay home with my kids today because I had nobody else to stay with them. So all I want to do here is quickly just tell you a couple things about the vocab that you hopefully just wrote down on your notes. A couple just quick little things I wanted to make sure I explain in person. On this first part here where we just define a circle, one thing just to make note of: when you are naming a circle, you always name it by the center. So if you think of like how we've named like triangle ABC, we draw a little triangle and then say ABC. When I name a circle, you can do it two different ways. You can call it circle K and just use the word circle and then you put the center point. Or you can use this little like circle with a dot in the middle and then put a K after that. So either way, it's circle K or circle, whatever it is, but you can use the word or you can use that symbol. Either of those work. A couple other things. One other thing that people tend to get confused: we've got three different kinds of, actually, there's several different kinds of segments, but the three main ones are a chord, a secant, and a tangent. The differences between those: a chord will always have its endpoints on the circle, and a chord is always just a segment. That's it. It can't be a line or array because it has to stay inside the circle. A secant is basically like a chord, but it goes outside of the circle. So if it were a segment, it would just have its endpoints on the outside of the circle. Or if it's a line, then it just goes outside. Or if it's an array, it goes outside of the circle. So that's kind of the big difference between chord and secant, inside or outside the circle. A tangent is where it just touches in one single point. So you've got this point right here, point A, where that line is intersecting the circle. And a tangent can be a line, array, or a segment, but it only intersects the circle in one point. That point is called a point of tangency, is where that line or segment or array intersects the circle, the point of tangency. Okay, oops, and I erased my point there. There we go. So that's kind of the three main types of segments and circles. A diameter is just a special type of chord. It just goes through the center of the circle. Congruent circles have the same radius. Then we've got a sphere and a congruent spheres. Again, a lot of the same things. It's just that they're three-dimensional instead of two-dimensional. Concentric circles and spheres, they share the same center, have different radii. Radii, by the way, is the plural of radius. So when you see radii with those two eyes, that's what that means. A triangle inscribed in a circle or a triangle circumscribed about a circle. Usually these are pretty easy to remember, but a lot of people will get them mixed up. Inscribed means that the object is inside, and circumscribed means that the object is around. So that circum means around. That's kind of the way you can tell the difference between the two of those. So make sure you know the difference between something being inscribed in a circle or something being circumscribed about a circle. And by the way, I drew triangles in here, but it could be a square, a rectangle, a hexagon, a pentagon. Think of how we watched in that pie video the other day. Archimedes was drawing that 96-sided polygon inside and outside of a circle. So anything can be inscribed or circumscribed, but has to be another polygon. Okay, so now that we've kind of gone through all the words, just kind of picking out some segments and naming what they are, you do want to pay attention to whether it's a segment, a line, or a ray. So this first one, we've got ray BA, which goes right there, right? That is only touching the circle in one spot at point A, so that would be a tangent. Okay. Segment XD, well, XD we can't even see in the circle, but I can draw it in here if I connect those 2 points, X and D. That goes from the center to a point on the circle, so that is a radius. From the center to on the circle is a radius. FE Goes from F here to E. Both of those endpoints are on the circle. So that would be a chord in our circle because it's got its two endpoints on the circle. GH, notice by the way that this one doesn't have a line above it. We could do this either way. Remember, if it doesn't have a line above it, that means the length of that segment. And if I look at GH, here's G, here's H, that's a chord because it's on, both endpoints are on the circle, but it also goes through our center point. So that is a diameter. And that can be with the bar above it or without the bar above it. It still means the diameter because the word diameter can refer to the actual segment in the circle, or it can actually refer to the length of the diameter of a circle. Next one is point X. X is right in the middle of our circle. That is the center of the circle. Next up is segment BC. B is here, C is here. So that one of our endpoints is on the circle, but one is off of the circle. So that one would be a secant. So it's that segment that goes outside of the circle. Our next one is point A. Point A, it's not really marked on there, but it's right there. That's where that tangent line, or tangent ray, sorry, BA intersects the circle. So that is a point of tangency. Next one is line BC. We had segment BC earlier. If I now just call that line BC, it just means that it would go on forever in both directions. It still is outside the circle, so that is still a secant. Okay. Next one, segment DI. Well, that goes from here's D and here's I. We've got one point on the circle, but this other point I, it's not on the circle. It's not the center. It's not really anything of importance too much. So DI, that's not one of the vocab words we talked about. DI, the most specific name I can give that, is just a segment. It's nothing special to our circle, just a segment. And the last one, segment CE. C is here, E is here. Our two endpoints are on the circle, so that is a chord. Okay. Hopefully those all kind of make sense. If not, let me know and I'll help you out. In our next picture, we've got a sphere this time. And this time we're actually going to name the parts. So with a sphere, it's the same idea. Chord, secant, all of those things, tangent, still kind of have the same definition. It's just on a three-dimensional object instead of a two-dimensional object. If I want to name a tangent to sphere F, tangent means, remember, it touches the outside of the circle or the outside of the sphere in just one point. So our tangent, we've got point C here where that line only touches in one spot. So I could put line CD. You could also write that as segment CD would work, or you could make it ray CD or ray DC. Any of those would count as tangents to sphere F. Naming a chord of sphere F. So a chord, remember, means that our 2 points are on the circle, or in this case, the 2 points are on the sphere. We have lots of options. One could be AB, right? A here is a point on the sphere, B is on the sphere, and that segment is dotted because it's actually going through the inside of the sphere. We can't really see it on the inside, but that counts as a chord. I could also do EC, would be a chord of the sphere, or we could do BC, we could do BE, right? And there may be a couple others there, but those are several examples. The only point I couldn't choose here, I can't choose F because that's the center of the sphere, and I can't choose D because it's not on the sphere, it's outside the sphere. All right, next, a secant. Secant kind of means the same thing as what our chord does. It's just that it goes outside of the sphere. So now I can still use A and B, but I'd have to call it line AB. We could do a line BC would work as a secant. You could also do something like line ED. This time I can use point D, because if I connect E and D here, oops, I did a very good job connecting those. So it kind of came out here at D, inside the sphere, came out there at E. That would count as a secant, right? It's going through the circle in 2 points, or through the sphere in 2 points, but it's also outside of our sphere. There's a couple other you could name there, but there's a few examples. For radii of the sphere, radii, remember, have to go from the center to a point on the outside of the sphere. So we could say things like FA would work as a radii or a radius. We could do FC. We could do FB. And we could do FE. The only one we can't put F with is D again because it's not on the sphere. Okay, so hopefully that helps kind of clear up, or hopefully maybe you tried these or thought along with me as you went through them and they make sense. If not, feel free to send me a chat message or an email to ask a question. I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. You guys have a lovely spring break. I will see you in about a week.